Hello, welcome to this brief presentation on Kovair Agile Solution. Kovair is a 100% web-based application and all its features and functionalities are accessible through a browser. You can either use Internet Explorer, Firefox or Chrome to access Kovair. In this session, we will mainly focus on release, sprint, backlog, test and task management. We will show how the different types of backlogs are categorized in Kovair and are linked to one another using traceability relationships. How these backlogs are prioritized, rated, ranked, and assigned to sprints will also be demonstrated through this presentation. We will also touch base with test and task management as we move on. Finally, we will show the task board, different kinds of dashboard and reports. We will begin by giving you a glimpse of Kovair's powerful dashboard capabilities. To do this, let us begin as an analyst and show you the user story management dashboard. So let us now log in as Rahul, who is the analyst. Rahul lands up in the user story management dashboard. The dashboard displays a collection of gadgets which can be a catalog to create new records or graphical or textual reports. Here is a report that displays the distribution of business value over urgency of the different backlogs that are being tracked in Kovair. These are not just static images but have drill down capabilities to navigate to the actual set of records that satisfies a particular sector. This pie chart showing the distribution of user stories that are assigned to different teams, and this one is of user stories that are distributed by urgency. On the right side is an example of a textual report. It shows the list of user stories grouped by sprint and further by test coverage, meaning whether these are covered by tests or not. This is the navigation bar. Kovair Agile Solution has artifacts that are clubbed for better viewing and ease of use. Sprint Management Group enlists releases and sprints. Backlog Management Group contains product backlogs. Test Management Group contains test-related artifacts like test set, test case, and test run. Tasks and timesheets are clubbed under the Task Management Group. So let us now go to the product backlog list. Kovair categorizes backlogs into epics, features, user stories, as well as defects. Epics are the raw-level customer requirements, which are broken down into features, which are further broken down into meaningful functional units called user stories. These all are linked to one another by means of traceability relationships. So let us now go to the traceability page to see the entire hierarchical chain by which these are related to one another. So here are the two epics. Drilling down epic 1, we get to see the features linked to it. Drilling down feature again, we will get to see the user stories which are linked to this particular feature. So thus, the user gets a complete visibility and understand how an epic is decomposed into meaningful logical user stories. Now let us go back to the product backlog list. Now, Kovair allows you to configure different kinds of views and filters. You can create a group by view or a tabular view. Over here is a group by view called group by backlog type. You can create multi-level group by views like group by source, scope, and severity. So over here you can group the backlogs by source and then by scope and then further by severity. You can also filter out data by selecting different filters which can be pre-configured or can be configured separately. So let us now create a new product backlog. We select the user story form. Let's enter a title like login page should have remember me option. We'll select the urgency. We'll select the business value and let's assign Bobby owner as the product owner. Now let's enter a description for this user story. So let's say description for login page should have a remember me option. And now let's save this user story. Bobby owner, being the product owner of this user story, gets a notification mail. So let's go to his notification mail. And over here you can see that you can configure such templates using Kovair and send notification mails to the product owner. So now let us go to the relationship matrix page and link the user story that we entered with the feature. So let us select a relation. Let's select the filter. So the filter is selected, and now I'll select the column filter, the product backlogs filter. So here is the feature, and we need to. So this is the user story that we have just entered, and we'll link it to a feature. We'll double click on the cell to link it to the particular feature, and thus the user story has been linked. So let us now go back to the product backlog list page. So let us now log in with the credentials of Bobby owner, who is the product owner. So the system has been configured as such that Bobby is directly taken to the dashboards page. So Bobby goes to the sprint dashboard, and the sprint dashboard consists of different gadgets. The first one being a velocity graph, which shows the number of story points delivered out of the total number of allotted story points by the team in each sprint. Another gadget shows a sprint burndown chart, which shows how much effort is remaining as on date that is required to deliver all the user stories assigned to the current ongoing sprint. So having taken note of the details from the dashboard, Bobby goes back to the backlog list. For the purpose of quick searching, Kovair allows you to search from an ID and search text box, which allows you to search by saying last 10, and the system would return the last 10 records that have been entered into the system. So over here I get to see the last user story that had been entered, which is the login page should have a remember me option. So Bobby right clicks on it and edits it to get to the details of the user story. And having seen the details, Bobby accepts the user story and assigns a particular release and subsequently a particular sprint to the user story, and saves the user story. Now for doing bulk operations, Kovair provides you a multi-edit page which allows you to do edit operations for a set of records. So this is more of an Excel-like interface on which you double click on any cell and enter relevant data. So this was the last user story that had been entered into the system. So Bobby double clicks on a cell and enters the estimated story size of this particular user story. Similarly, he might also assign a particular rank value to the user story and assign a team. So he assigns the Omega team this user story. So the details have been entered into the user story. So after having done all this, now the manager would want to look into the system. So now we would log into the system with Amar's credentials. So on logging in, the first thing that Amar would want to do is to create tasks for his team members. So we directly go to the product backlog list and click on the recently entered user story to go to the details. Scrolling down, the user story form has a task section. Amar would expand that and add a couple of tasks for his team members. So let me create the first task like develop, and assign it to a team member called Margaret Developer, and say save and new to create another task for another team member. Say another task called test and assign it to a tester, and save it. So now the task section would reflect the two tasks that has been created by Amar. So we'll select the respective view and filter to display the task that has been created by Amar. So here is the list of two tasks that has been created. Now Kovair has a task board configured in its application to list all the tasks that are going on in a particular sprint. So going into the task board, we'll select the project that we have been working upon, select the respective release and also the sprint to load the task board. So over here, the task board should reflect the latest task that had been created by Yammer. And over here you can see for the user story that had been entered into the system right now, there have been 2 tasks assigned to it, and this is in the first column of the task board, that is the not started column. So the task board is a very intuitive interface that allows you to drag and drop tasks, like dragging a particular task from the not started column to dropping it to the next column, and so the status of the task can be changed very easily from the task board itself. So now we would be logging in with the details of Margaret, who's the developer. So as Margaret logs in, she directly lands into the My Tasks page, which is an inbox kind of a page, and that lists all the existing and unfinished tasks of the user. So over here you can see this page lists all the tasks that have not been yet completed by Margaret, and this page is independent of any workspace. That is, the tasks displayed over here can be from multiple workspaces. So we can see that the last task that Margaret is assigned to is the one which Amar had just created. So Margaret clicks into the details of it. Margaret sees the details, and as Margaret works on it, she can also enter the amount of time that she has been putting it while doing this task. For that, there is the time entry section. On expanding it, she'll get a link for adding time entry. Clicking on that would open the timesheet. Over here, she can enter the amount of time she has been spending on the tasks. So as this being the September sprint, we'll quickly go to the September month and select a date. Over here we need to select the relevant task, which is this login page, and I'll enter the amount of time that Margaret has been putting for this task. Once done, she'll click submit, and hence the records have been entered. So I'll cancel it and go back to the list page. Now, after having worked over it for a considerable amount of time and on finishing the task, Margaret can directly come and change the status from this page only. She can double click on this and click on the drop down and say completed. And thus the task would no more be seen in this task page. So this again should be reflected on the task board of the Kovair Agile Solution. So let's go to the task board of the Kovair Agile Solution once again and see whether this has been reflected into the task board. So we go to the task, and over here we can see that the last task that had been assigned to Margaret has now shifted to the completed column, as Margaret had completed the task. So now let's log in with the details of Abhay tester. So Abhay directly lands into the test case page, as you can see, and over here the view is selected as test case view and all test case view. This is a tabular kind of view which lists all the test cases that have been entered into the system and have been executed so far. So this is the test case coverage field which has been shown on the basis of the status that the test cases are currently in. So we'll quickly create a new test case. We'll enter the title for the test case, like test case for login page. Now we'll create 2 test steps for this particular test case. So let's create a step called selecting the checkbox. We can add an expected result and save it, and again add another step like unchecking the checkbox and save it. And we can link this particular test case to the user story that we had just entered. So I'll relate an existing user story. So the view is user story view and the filter is user stories in current sprint, and over here we can see this is the last user story that we had entered. So we select it and say done, and hence save this test case. Now coming back to the test case list page, we see that the last entered test case is right on top, And this is the test case which shows the execution status is not run, and hence there is no test coverage too. So now we'll execute this particular test case. To do that, we select and then go to the action menu and say execute test case. This would open up a new test run item page to create a new test run. So as you can see, there is a create new test run page, and these are the two steps on which the test has to be performed. So we'll select one and update the field and say this step is passed, and select another step and update the field and say that this case has failed. So this step fails. So now we save the test run. So with one step passing and another failing, the test case would fail as because one of the steps included in it has failed. So if we refresh this list, you will see that now the execution status and test case coverage would be showing, and it shows failed. So as because the test case failed and a test run has been generated, now a defect would automatically be generated in the system as because the test run had failed. So this is the last test run that had been generated. So we select that, and over here we have a section called defects, and that lists the particular defect that has been automatically created because of the test run failing. So this title is automatically generated with the help of a policy that has been configured in Kovair, and the defect has been submitted. So this was the test management part in Kovair, and that brings us to an end of the presentation of the Kovair Agile Solution. You can contact sales@kovair.com for any further query of yours. Thank you.